I'm here with Eva Dehlinger, and the first thing I did when I pulled up at your estate was note that you've got some California sprawl type stuff here, and you're a Pinot Noir producer in Sonoma. So I was a little confused, and so you immediately took me into this vineyard to show me what's going on here. Tell us a little bit about this parcel.
Well, these are some of the oldest vines that we have at Dehlinger. They're some of the older Pinot Noir vines in the Russian River Valley. They were planted by my father in 1975. And the fact that it doesn't look like the vines that we see planted in this era are reflective of the fact that there's a lot of heritage and history here. The vines are a larger vine than the type of vine that is planted in a modern era. And because of that, we have trained the vine to go out in 4 directions so that it has enough space to grow. So you see this quad system here. And we have outfitted the vine with what's called an open lyre. And so this piece of hardware is shaped like the lyre instrument, and it allows the shoots to grow up vertically and be positioned vertically. And when you're able to do that, you have the ability to position the fruit in such a way that it gets dappled sunlight and good airflow. The vine has also been retrofitted to be a cane prune system. So rather than having the spurs that it used to have when it was younger, we modified it so that it has 4 canes. And a cane pruned system is associated with more even growth and even bearing, which is important for older Pinot Noir, which when it's on the spur prune system can be more variable.
And one of the reasons these vines are a bit bigger is because of the rootstock they're on, which is
AXR.
And that's a kind of a boogeyman word because you've got to deal with phylloxera.
That's right. So AXR was an extremely popular rootstock in the 1970s and was widely planted in California. It has a lot of great qualities. It has the ability to make excellent wine. It grows well, it propagates well, and it was planted widely. Unfortunately, it is not resistant to the root louse phylloxera. And so a lot of our neighbors moved away from AXR. However, we have been able to manage our older AXR vines, and they're still with us today. They are a larger vine because AXR tends to produce more growth in a plant. And
there's romance here because these are the vines that your father planted. These are the original vines in the estate. So you're keeping them out of that, but you're not sacrificing quality. So you have an incremental replanting program.
That's it, yeah. Exactly. So we have a lot of AXR rootstock still, and in a measured way, we've been replanting it over time so that we are phasing out the AXR vineyard and looking towards the future, but little by little.
And we're going to go look to the future in one of the other parcels and see the differences, right?
Perfect.
Okay. So we're back at our second stop now as we kind of look through the past, distant past, near past, and then we're going to get to the present. We got a 2011 replant in this parcel, and tell us what's going on here because it's obviously very different.
Well, we started replanting our older vines to a system that was a different rootstock and created a smaller vine. And it is still a vertically shoot position system where the shoots are going to grow straight up, but rather than going out in 4 directions, it goes out just in a single plane. And that is a direction that a lot of growers in California, premium growers in California, have gone towards. It's more advantageous for managing the fruit zone in one plane only. You can see that we're just that bud break here. I've got the buds swelling, and in some cases they're leafing out, and the fruit is going to be contained in this shoot, and we're getting ready for the 2020 season already.
We're just 20 feet away from the parcel that we first looked at, so same soil type here. So this is a drastic change. What do you see in the fruit, the resulting fruit, after you've made this change?
Well, what we see is that this block, This is all part of the section of the vineyard that we call the Champ de Mars, but it's a younger block with a different rootstock and a tighter spacing. And we see that the wines are more concentrated and more structural. And that's a result of a number of factors. It is in part the clone. It's a heritage California clone of Pinot Noir, but it's a different clone. But it is also in part the rootstock, and the rootstock is associated with a smaller vine and tends to make a darker, more structural wine.
And that's something you're looking for because you feel that's a bit more expressive of the site itself.
Well, it's a good component to have, but I have a lot of components, a lot of different sections of our vineyard that vary either by soil type or perhaps clone or vine age, and I like to have many different aspects to work with so that there's diversity and not too much homogeneity.
And we're gonna go see your youngest replant next, right?
Yes.
And now our final stop as we travel forward in time at Dehlinger. We're in the Octagon parcel, and this was planted in 2020.
That's it.
So another phase in the viticultural shifts here. Tell us what's going on in this parcel.
Well, this is a good opportunity to see the stages in growth or development of a new block. So this is a very young block right now, planted in 2020, and it has just been trained up. You see a very thin trunk. You see the two canes being laid out, and you can see that everything about it is much thinner and skinnier than the more mature vine planted either in the 1970s or in 2011 that we previously saw. So this is a very young vine, and this year we're going to have a first very small crop. We'll have to take off most of the fruit that it throws because we want the vine to be focused on growing good, strong roots that will allow it to have a long life. But we'll get a little bit of fruit, and this will be the first year I get to make wine from this block.
What's the guess in terms of the characteristic that you're going to get from this fruit?
Well, it's growing in our red Altamont soil, and I always see a lot of concentration and structure from this type of soil. So I'm expecting a lot of intensity from this block.
Now, as you've done these phases of replanting here, it gives you an opportunity to learn at the same time. Rootstock combinations, clonal material. So do you feel you've perfected it yet, or is this still... I see we have not perfected it yet. This is an ongoing process.
Well, a local winemaker once told me I think it takes 2 consecutive lifetimes to learn anything in viticulture. So yes, we're still learning. But I will say that we did apply some of the lessons we've learned. We've learned that 420A rootstock does very well on our property.
Okay.
Because it allows us to dry farm. So we like to use minimal water inputs. So we've gone with the 420A again here, and this particular clone is one that has done very well for us in a previous planting. It's a 943 clone, which has a wonderful spiciness to it, and so we started with a small section, a small trial of that, and have expanded it into the Octagon block.
And then, since you have an affinity for old vines that we saw in that historical parcel, when you have young vine fruit, will you separate that, do other things with it? Is it merely based on quality, or is vine age really important in determining where you're going to put the fruit in which bottlings?
Well, it's certainly something we consider. So we ferment, we make many different fermentations. We do have dozens of Pinot Noir fermentations, for instance, and we combine them into bottlings based on theme. Sometimes that's soil type, sometimes that's based on vine age. So we actually have done bottlings where we separate out old vine versus young vine. But in some of our bottlings, we'll be basing it more on quality. And what I've learned is that old vines can bring a special quality to wine, but part of what they're bringing is their longevity and the story and your time with the vine, and that's absolutely special. But there is still potential for young vines to be excellent. And so you really have to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis.
And then that second lifetime that you talked about is when these vines finally achieve the age of where you were in the first parcel, then you might really see what they can really do. And I guess that's the pursuit, right?
Absolutely.